Fiona Caines is going to be your next host here for the Inspirathon. And I hope that you continue to enjoy your day and pop in and out when you can and listening to all of these great talks and the brilliance that's being shared here. So Fiona, are you here with us? Are you ready to take over? I'm passing the baton to you.
I am. This feels like my Eurovision moment. It's what I've always been wanting.
Exactly. Lots of fun. So
Brilliant.
Good luck. Thanks for letting me be hosting here. I've really enjoyed it. And I just am looking forward to being involved and popping in the rest of the day.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Karen. So hello from Bristol. Thank you for the lovely introduction and congratulations to all the speakers so far. For anyone who's just joining us, welcome to the Inspiring Workplaces Global Workplace Inspirathon. My name's Fiona Caines and I am Strategy Director at Home, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. So today isn't just a chance for us to showcase the knowledge, inspiration and connections that we have in our global community. It's really about helping you to create your own inspiring workplaces in 2023 and beyond. As you know, we're hosting this Global Workplace Inspirathon live, but it is going to be available on demand. So if you miss any, or if you want to catch up on any that are on at funny times for your in the middle of the night for you, then they're all going to be available for you. So highly recommend doing that. As we're talking and you're watching these, please ask questions. We'd love to know that you're there so that we're not talking into the digital void. And you can also join the conversation in our Slack channel, and there's a link to that in the comments on the right-hand side. So that's the housekeeping out of the way. Welcome to not so sunny Bristol, I'm afraid, pouring rain today. For those who don't know, it's home of Banksy, Clifton Suspension Bridge, but it's also got a really vibrant employee experience community. And we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers for you today, but we're going to kick off today with my talk on trust and inspire leadership. So before we dive into that, a quick introduction to Home so you know who you're listening to. Home is an agency who specialises in employee experience. It is all we do. We're a team of strategists, account managers and amazing creatives who eat, sleep and breathe employee experience, and we're really passionate about it. Our vision is to make every employee experience a great one. We want people to feel better for being in work, and we know that that can be the reality because we've seen it in organisations across the globe. And we do that through designing the world's most innovative and authentic employee experiences from hire to retire. So it's all about helping people to find those little moments of joy in their day. We're really lucky to do that for a whole host of different organisations, snapshot of which you can see here. So they're big and small, they're local and global, and that really allows us to take that learning from all of those different types of organisations and bring that into our learning and keep our finger on the pulse of what great looks like in the world of employee experience. We're really passionate about it, in case you couldn't tell from me already, but we do an annual piece of research, which is called Roundel. We're about to launch our survey soon, so watch this space for that. But that's really where we kind of lift the lid on what's going on in our industry. We have our sofa sessions training, where we dig into big projects like EVP, values, purpose, anything like that we can help people to kind of understand what a large scale change program could look like for them. We also have HomieX, which is our subscription service, which is a bank of tools that people can access to help to design great employee experiences for themselves. So I think often we can feel a little bit like this little bearded man on the screen here, where, you know, we work in our world, in our bubble, and we're thinking, okay, I know what I'm doing, but what else is going on out there? What's going on in the world? And what can I learn from others? And what should I be kind of taking into my working day? And that's what I'm hoping to give you a bit of an insight into today, with a specific focus on leadership. Now, the key thing, and this isn't going to come as any surprise to anyone here, but is that the expectations of work are fundamentally changing. They fundamentally changed. And I want us to kind of take a bit of a trip down memory lane and think about how we've ended up where we are and what that really means for us. So if we look back, well, employers and employees, when they first started to think about what their obligation was as an employer, they cared about utility, the basics. Am I giving my employees the tools they need to do their job? Yes, fine, that's enough for me. And that was where we began. It then moved into productivity. So, okay, I've given them the tools, but what could I do now to kind of optimize that? How can I make improvements that will really get more out of people? Then, thankfully, we moved into the space of engagement, although let's not celebrate too soon, because potentially some of the intentions behind it weren't quite there. It was, how do we keep people happy so that they stay longer and do better work? Then we had the tech boom. The Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples of the world came and started to dangle shiny packages, slides, free food, and all of those perks into the workplace. And that really became all the rage for a really a kind of short period of time, where I think ping pong tables popped up in offices around the globe. But organizations quickly realized that actually that wasn't quite cutting it, and the benefits were short term. What people really wanted from work was meaning. And that was really when we started to move into that world of employee experience. We start to think about this as a deal between employee and employer. They understand that there are expectations on both sides of the table, and people starting to take an active role in doing interventions to make that better. And then it came to what we're calling the age of EX, the age of employee experience. And that's where the organizations who focused on employee experience have started to see those tangible benefits to performance, to engagement, retention, and it becomes a bit of an industry. So organizations are really starting to look at that hire to retire employee life cycle, all of the different touch points, and think about what they could do to impact each one. And really, we kind of reached there probably just before the pandemic, maybe in the year before, where we're really starting to see that kind of richness of that conversation. Then the pandemic hit, a strange time for all of us. And it changed everything. It really changed the way that people viewed the future of work, and our expectations transformed alongside our lives. And we all kind of took that pause to really think about what we wanted from work and what we wanted our lives to be. The power dynamic shifted. We saw news story after news story of employees saying, actually, I don't want to work in that environment anymore, and that's not okay. And they felt like they had a voice and an opinion. It's really hard to imagine before the pandemic that if an employer like Apple said, I need you to work in the office 4 or 5 days a week, that people would say no. It's pretty astonishing, actually, that we've reached that place in the time frame that we have. And this is really interesting to me because it's also a time where your employer brand and your employee experience have really blurred together. And these things can actually have an enormous reputational impact, and that's why they matter so much, as well as just doing the right thing for your people and creating a great environment for people to thrive. So it's been a really interesting time for our world, and for the way that people are talking about it. Now, the funny thing is, despite all of that change and the fact that all of us could easily say the world is very different now, we're still expecting our leaders to lead in the same way that they always have. Many leaders were given little to no guidance or instruction on how to manage a remote team, even though they'd never done it before. And because these expectations have shifted so dramatically, really the style of leadership needs to follow. And that's something that I'm really passionate about and that I wanted to kind of get into the detail of today, because in a world where people expect more humanity, connection, flexibility, if your leaders aren't up to scratch, then your employee experience won't be either. So leaders create experiences. We need to remember that for many of our colleagues, the leader, their line manager, is the only person that they're guaranteed to speak to every single day. And that means that their employee experience is very much filtered through that person and that experience that they have day to day. So getting this right is pivotal. I also think we all know leaders are often the most squeezed population in an organization. They're getting pressure from their team and instruction from above, and that can be quite a tricky place to be. That, I think, can make some employee experience teams shy away from engaging with their leaders because they don't want to add any pressure. But the reality is, if we do that, we're not giving them the tools to manage this, that we're not giving them the tools to do this better and make their life better for them. Leaders are also people. So what can we do to help them to kind of navigate this and to do things a little differently? So the model that I particularly like and that I wanted to talk about today was developed by workplace psychologist Stephen Covey, and it's called Trust and Inspire Leadership. Now, Covey suggests that what we need to do is move away from command and control into trust and inspire. So rather than looking at, is that person complying with what I say? Are they efficient? Are they able to deliver that specific thing that I've defined as their role? Can I kind of keep them in that role and control what they do? And am I, as a leader, managing people and things? We should be moving over to actually assessing people to say, okay, how committed are they? Are they connected? How effective are they in the work that they deliver? What impact are they having? Are they growing? Are they learning? Do they feel like they can achieve anything? And I really love this language: release, unleash, Are we trusting them and giving them the space to thrive and grow, and that flexibility to make work fit with their life and not the other way around? And then managing things lead people. So that's that really human aspect that's really important as we kind of start to navigate this new world. And I think that kind of comes through really strongly. So Covey suggests there's kind of 3 stages in this transition, and it's going from what can I do to you and what can I do for you to what can I do with you. And I think if we think about the best leaders that we've had, I certainly know that the best leaders that I've had are the ones who treat me like a peer, who I'm able to be open with, who I can have those conversations with. And I think that kind of collaborative feel and what can I do with you is just a really lovely mantra for leaders to kind of get their heads behind. So some people kind of, when they think about this, they worry, but what if I seem weak or out of control or there's no structure? Actually, that's not the case. What this relies on is a simple structure that believes in the greatness of people. And if you believe that someone can be great, then you're much more likely to be in a position to be able to kind of unlock all of the great things that already live inside them. So I wanted to share an example of this in practice and in action. And a really good example of that is Microsoft. So we all know in the 90s, Microsoft was everything. They were, we all had Windows machines, operating systems. We all used Safari, Internet Explorer. We didn't use anything else. Then Apple and Google started to catch up. And suddenly there was a talent drain and people just didn't view Microsoft as relevant. So step in Satya Nadella in 2014, and he could see straight away that the culture was the barrier. So there was too much red tape. There was a culture of fear. People weren't able to share their ideas, which was really hampering on their innovation. And there was a real lack of progression and that feeling of doing things new in a new and different way. So Nadella believes that in order to win in the workplace, you've got to attract, retain, and engage the best people. And he often displays characteristics of trust and inspire leadership. He role models the behaviors that he wanted to see. So in this case, he was seeking humility, empathy, authenticity, creativity, and collaboration. He instilled that in his line managers and his direct reports. He celebrated when he saw people doing it. And he really made those the kind of key pillars and the only things that he asked leaders to focus on. They also focused on growth mindset. So not just for themselves and looking for your own growth opportunities, but also looking for growth opportunities for your peers and the people around you. So it really became part of the fabric of the organization. And that transformed the culture. Not only that, Nadella has a 92% CEO approval rating, and the market value of Microsoft has climbed to $2 trillion, which is a pretty unfathomable number. But it had real world impact, and a lot of that was down to the way that they reshaped the culture. So you're probably listening to that and thinking, okay, well, I'm not Microsoft, so where do I start? So I wanted to give a bit of a framework. So some of the things that I think you could think about so that you could start to kind of put this into motion in your own organization. Now, no surprise here, it starts with leadership training. So the way that we tend to do this, and we have a lovely Dell example here that we did for them, which is a toolkit, but essentially face-to-face training for leaders, or virtual, obviously, but a space for two-way conversation where you can introduce the topic and then explain what it means for them and what you would expect to see a shift of in terms of their behaviors and their ways of working. So be really clear about that. The two-way conversation piece is really important because people need to feel like they can voice any concerns that they might have. And for some, this will be a very different way of operating. So let's give them that space to talk and really explain what's expected of them. Follow that up with a toolkit like this one. In that toolkit, you can have all that reference information, but it should also really be practical. So team exercises, give them conversation starters of how they can start to weave this into their feedback practices or even into their performance reviews. And alongside that, a lot of this is about creating communities. And I think often the best leadership training involves having some kind of follow on afterwards. So could you create a Yammer group or a Slack channel or something like that, a space where people can get together and say, so I tried this part of Trust and Inspire today and it went really well. You should try it too. Or I tried this, it didn't quite work. Does anyone have any ideas of what I could do differently? And that way the leaders are supporting each other and it becomes a community and you get that collaboration and connection that's a really important part of creating that kind of trust and inspire environment. So you could also look at, we often update these toolkits quarterly to keep the content fresh, to make sure that it becomes a kind of constant part of the conversation. Now, I don't think I'd be able to get through today without talking about hybrid, I'm afraid. But it really comes into play in Trust and Inspire and in that conversation, because I think when the pandemic first hit, many leaders defaulted to command and control, a bit of a panic reflex where they thought, oh, I can't see my team. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're working on and what the expectations are here. And it kind of caused a bit of a contraction in that. So what we would recommend here is to make sure that there is complete and total clarity between the line manager and the employee about what's really expected of them in this new space. This will allow trust to flourish. Without this, people just don't really know what's going on. And we've met with lots of clients recently who are saying, I think I'm meant to be working 3 days a week, but we only do 2. And that clarity and that woolliness is actually, if your culture isn't robust enough, and if you don't already have that kind of trust and inspire environment, it can cause real friction, not just between line manager and employee, but also between teams as a whole because of a lack of consistency. So in this example here that we worked on with BNP Paribas, it was all about helping to explain their happy balance and just give total clarity to their team. And obviously there was a much broader campaign that sat alongside this, but if you are thinking about that trust and inspire approach, then we need to make sure that we've got that clarity in place. Now, because growth mindset is a really big part of this conversation, I just wanted to be absolutely clear that before we start talking to people about growing and doing things differently, we first need to make sure that they're in a good space with their mental health and well-being. So what you're seeing on the screen at the minute is actually something that we've done for ourselves at home, and it's called Be Kind to Your Mind. So it's a toolkit for leaders that helps them to understand exactly what mental health and well-being means and what it can look like. It gives them practical tools that help them to spot and identify where people might need support. And then it's got self-reflection exercises and things that they could do to help their team members to kind of identify anything that they could do to positively impact on their mental health and well-being. Those conversation starters there, it's a really important thing because this isn't something that everyone feels finds easy to talk about. So the more that we can do to give them that, then the better. And then very quickly on the last two, in that Microsoft example, we talked about how part of the benefit for them was about attracting and retaining the right people. So if you've done those things we just talked about and you've really started to embed that kind of attraction and onboarding, the trust and inspire into your organization, then you can use attraction and onboarding to tell that story. So I think Tony Chocolonis do this so well. They really tell you who they are and what they're about. So surface that through your employer brand, surface that you're a trust and inspire organization so that you'll attract people who operate well in that environment, and also set that expectation of how you expect them to work on an ongoing basis. And then lastly, storytelling and recognition. So I think as I was pulling this together, there were so many examples I could put in here because I think we do storytelling with pretty much every single client we have. And that's because we really believe in putting the employee voice at the center and really surfacing that. So if someone is displaying great trust and inspire leadership or trust and inspire behavior, then let's celebrate it. Tell that story, explain the impact that it had, because that way you're positively reinforcing the behavior, but you're also really unpicking what great looks like and helping people to behave in a similar way and kind of reap the benefits across the organization. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but those would probably be the 5 things that if I were thinking I wanted to create a more trusting and inspiring environment that I would start with. So that's a lot of information for 20 minutes and through what's been, a bumper day and a bit of sessions. So if you're going to only take away one thing from today, I thought it should be this, and that is that your leaders are the key ingredient to a healthy workplace culture. You really can't do it without them. Employees expect trust. They've had trust. They come to your organization with a baseline of expecting you to trust them. It's really important to retain that. And then leaders have the ability to inspire. So your role as an organization is to help your leaders to do that, give them the tools to do that, and help them to create that kind of positive environment that they can bring the best of their people and the best of themselves to your organization every single day. Thank you very much.